From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, how much is too much water when it comes to caring for those indoor plants? The White House firing back.
I do not acknowledge that the fundamental economy will be adversely affected at all.
As the government shutdown enters its 34th day, and FSA offices open their doors once again.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. FSA offices opening across the country today, and we're learning more about the services they'll be offering. Take a look at your screen. FSA will be able to handle transactions dealing with, among other things, the Market Facilitation Program, marketing assistance loans, direct and guaranteed farm operating loans and emergency loans, agricultural risk coverage, and price loss coverage. Now, among the things not available, new Conservation Reserve Program contracts, new direct and guaranteed farm ownership loans, or farm storage facility loan program. Now, the USDA is temporarily recalling all of the more than 9,700 FSA employees to keep those offices open from 8 until 4:30 on weekdays. For a full list of services being offered, head to our website, agday.com, and click on links. And there's some good news for producers who still want to sign up for the Market Facilitation Program. You're being given more time. The USDA also announcing the deadline has been extended to Thursday, February 14th. The original deadline was last Tuesday. The U.S. Department of Agriculture had authorized up to $12 billion in aid last year for ranchers and farmers hit hard by the trade war with China. As for the shutdown, President Trump and congressional Democrats remain locked in a standoff over the president's demand for border wall funding. The shutdown now in its second month. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has scheduled 2 votes to end the showdown for today. They come a day before some 800,000 federal workers are due to miss a second paycheck. The first is rejected by Democrats and unlikely to move forward. The second is for a bill already passed by the Democratic-controlled House. It would reopen the government through February 8th. It contains no border wall funding, but gives bargainers time to talk. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders commented on the plan.
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. The president has a plan on the table that actually fixes the problem. It doesn't kick it down the road. I think the bigger question you have to ask is to Nancy Pelosi. The president asked her point blank if we reopen the government. At that point, we were talking about a 30-day CR. The president asked her point blank, if I sign this and we open the government today, will you support in 30 days funding for border security, including a wall? And she said no. The president's been clear that that has to be addressed. This is a crisis and we've got to do something about it.
House Democrats have added $1.5 billion for border security to legislation being voted on this week. The funding would go toward immigration judges, bolstered infrastructure, and aid to Central American countries. President Trump says he is planning to deliver his State of the Union address next week in front of a joint session of Congress. That's despite House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's request that he delay. The president issuing a letter to Pelosi dismissing her suggestion the speech should be postponed or delivered in writing due to security issues related to the partial government shutdown. He added, it would be, quote, so very sad for the country if the address is not given as planned next Tuesday. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow is brushing off concerns that the ongoing partial government shutdown will have long-term negative impacts on the economy. Kudlow telling reporters at the White House that the hardship federal workers are experiencing is surely a bad thing, but that he expects the economy to bounce back quickly once the shutdown is over.
In my judgment, although we will have a glitch with respect to the temporary shutdown, the economy is very strong. The private sector is very strong, and I know there's a lot of pessimism out there. I do not share that pessimism.
Kudlow also speaking out after a report yesterday said the Trump administration turned down an offer by 2 Chinese vice ministers to hold preparatory trade talks because the 2 sides haven't progressed on 2 important issues. Those are forced technology transfers and structural reforms to China's economy. Now, Kudlow saying no such preliminary meeting was ever slated. Major trade officials from both countries are still scheduled to meet next Wednesday and Thursday. And these new numbers show more work needs to be done. Reuters reporting China's imports of livestock feed grains, sorghum and barley continued to go down last month. China used to be the world's top sorghum buyer, but it bought zero of it in December. That's compared to 160,000 tons in 2017. The country imported only 140,000 tons of barley last month. That's down more than 75% from the previous year. But Bloomberg is reporting a big buy could come soon. It says Chinese officials are considering buying as much as 7 million tons of U.S. wheat. It's apparently contingent on talks going well next week. The possible wheat buy, along with other recent buys of farm goods, come as Chinese officials work with the U.S. to reduce a trade surplus of $323 billion. Rain changing to icy snow caused slippery road conditions in portions of the Midwest. In Wisconsin, forecasters expected some areas to see up to 12 inches of snow. Interstates in northern and western Illinois just covered with ice and snow. More than 460 flights were canceled in Chicago, and Detroit's main airport reopening after it was shut down for 14 hours due to freezing rain. Now, I know that because I was one of those who got to enjoy an overnight stay at the airport on the floor. But all that snow can make for some pretty amazing scenes too, as meteorologist Cindy Clauston shows us in today's Crop Comments. Cindy.
Well, Clinton, your commute may have been challenging, but this one might have people seeing things a different way. Tim May is a dairy farmer in Ontario, Canada. He shared this picture on Twitter saying, quote, "One farmer, one path through the snow, one peaceful commute to work." A nice sentiment to share. Thanks so much, Tim. Well, let's take a look at the wind forecast as we head through the day today, and it's going to start off on the windy side, especially in the north central United States and kind of along the mid-Atlantic and off to the northeast as well, as we see that one system leaving the area. We've got the second system moving through the nation's midsection. You can see that spreading off to the east, and you see those winds picking up in parts of the southern plains as well. Heading into the overnight hours, you can see everything's moving on to the east. We're going to start to see some low pressure moving down into the northern plains, and we'll see those winds increasing in the plain states as well. Coming up, we're going to have a look at your national forecast, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Still ahead on Ag Day, we have a different take on the shutdown and what it means for the economy coming up. And later, taking care of those indoor plants, what's the right amount of water to give them? The answer coming up in the country.
Ag Day, brought to you by new Delaro fungicide for corn and soybeans. Achieve personal best yields.
In agribusiness, wheat and soybeans saw some gains on Wednesday as traders mulled over news that China may be making a substantial buy of wheat. More now, you can see me.
Soybeans firmed up. There was 8 cargoes destined for China, and that really got a little bit of a boost to the market. The reports that the GDP growth is 6.6% in China is the lowest in 28 years. And even on the Dalian exchange, the soybean meal, hit its lows. And I think that that's part of the African swine fever, that it's worse than has feared. It's kind of interesting because that's the meal is really used for the feed, but the trade talks have really stalled, and now we're kind of on a wait-and-see basis. Even though the market had a little bit of something to give it somewhat of a rally, we're going to see a lot of choppy trade and sideways movement. Now, the uptick in export demand also is like helping the market somewhat, but the government shutdown makes it real difficult to confirm that the export demand is higher. All the other data is actually kind of bearish for wheat, so we have to watch that closely. But the data, it's really hard to tell, and I think that there's a lot to be done before we can meet that 1 billion export forecast that was put out by the USDA. But all that being said, the fact that we're up 5 days in a row looks pretty good for wheat.
Pete Meyer with S&P Global Platts, our guest here at Top Producer Summit. And Pete, let's talk about this government shutdown because it impacts a lot of different things, from our own economy to these trade conversations, and where do we go with demand in creating 2019? What's your takeaway right now with where we sit?
It's very difficult. I mean, you look at the ethanol business, even before this happened, Pacific Energy is starting to close down plants. And the reason for that is you can't just throttle back a plant. You have to run a plant. And it just didn't work for them with the low oil prices. Low oil prices, okay, the President of the United States likes low oil prices, but that could just continue here due to this economy, right? I flew in this morning from New York. The plane wasn't even a quarter full. I mean, yeah, I'm thankful that the TSA agents showed up and that the air traffic controllers showed up. But nonetheless, no government employees are moving. So you're going to start to feel this in the economy. Regarding China, I mean, you've seen how that economy has slowed down. But that economy was really starting to slow down before this whole trade war thing. But I think we need some economic stimulus into China to get that economy going so we can start moving some more product that way as well.
Yeah, whenever you talk about moving product, we always talk about demand and creating demand. There seem to be some new headwinds out there for the whole idea of corn and ethanol and these biofuels in the form of electric vehicles, and we're just now hearing that.
Yes, and I mean, you know, not in conjunction, but running simultaneously with this here in Chicago, the Detroit Auto Show, the nameplate auto shows out there. And yesterday it was announced that they're going to spend, that the major car manufacturers are going to spend $300 billion in what we call EV research or EV development. Now, the scary thing about that is they've earmarked $150 billion of that just to China. Okay, and China we were counting on for this E15. And then you have Volkswagen and Ford getting together. So, I mean, in our opinion, and that's the opinion of S&P Global Platts, this is something we have to watch out for 2025, but it's 2019 already. So we have to be cognizant of that. I don't know necessarily that the Chinese ethanol mandate is going to be the savior for corn. I love to see it. I love to see us just punch out and sell tons of ethanol there. I mean, they don't have the production capacity there, so we'd have to sell it as a finished product, which would be great. But I temper my enthusiasm there a little bit.
A lot of things up in the air. Appreciate the insights. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
We're back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
For more information on S&P Global Platts agricultural research and analysis, call 646-478-6465. You could win a 2019 John Deere Gator. No purchase necessary. Visit ValentFullyLoaded.com for details and official rules.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist Cindy Clausen. And Cindy, I think it's safe to say winter is still here.
Oh, definitely.
It is not ended.
Yeah, especially if you're in the north central United States, you are really feeling the effects. We'll get to temperatures in a second, but let's take a look at the map. And we're going to have three main systems that we're watching. One will be exiting the east coast today, but boy, it's still going to be dumping a lot of rain and some snow, especially on the northern side and on the back side as temperatures cool down. Second system doesn't pack a lot of moisture, but the really cold air is coming in behind that. Third system will be coming down out of Canada in the next 24 hours. Here's a look at Thursday at 7 o'clock. We're going to be looking at that system moving off to the east. Still a little bit of activity in New England. And then again, not a ton of moisture with this low pressure system that's now moving through the Great Lakes, but we will see some snow with that. Fairly dry conditions in the plains as that high pressure settles down. And then as we get into Thursday night, you'll see that low pressure coming down into the plains. We still have that cold air in much of the nation's midsection and into the Great Lakes. East Coast dry for at least a little bit, but then that system is going to start moving on off to the east, and that'll bring some snow to the northeastern United States, a little bit of snow in parts of the Corn Belt as well as the Intermountain West. All right, let's take a look at the precipitation. The past 24 hours mainly has been that front in the eastern part of the country, and we're going to add more to that. A lot of this is rain, but on the northern fringes, we're seeing a fair amount of snow as well. And speaking of the snow, this is the past 24 hours. Adding the next 24 hours, you can see that spreading through the northeast, especially around Maine and especially into Canada. I think they're going to see higher amounts there and a little bit more snow in the upper elevations of the Rockies. Now, look at these temperatures. We're only looking at single digits, probably even below that in some parts of North Dakota, Minnesota, perhaps even northern Wisconsin as well. Only 14 in Omaha, but we're up to near 70 by the time you get to Brownsville. Overnight we go and look at that. We're going to be below zero in the north central United States once again, maybe even stay below zero the entire day in some spots. 13 in Cincinnati. We're looking at 29 for a low in Dallas, so getting pretty chilly in those areas. And then as we get into tomorrow, temperatures only around zero in a lot of the Great Lakes, especially the northern parts of it. So really cold air coming back into play, and the jet stream really shows that that's going to be continuing. You can see that trough in the northeastern United States, ridge in the west, so you'll see warm temperatures there, but that trough keeps getting more reinforcement. And look at this Wednesday next week as that really dips down south. So we're looking at this cold weather pattern for basically the northeastern quadrant of the country to be continuing for a while. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Yerington, Nevada, abundant sunshine today with a high of 50 degrees. Edgeley, North Dakota, very cold, a high of only 6 below, low down to 13 below tonight. Oakland, Maine, rain and fog with snow later on.
A lesson for us all about heading out on thin ice, courtesy of this deer. Now watch this. The deer fell through the ice on Lake Olathe in Kansas. Wearing special suits, firefighters managed to pull the animal to shore. Rescuers say the ice looked deceptively thick, and rescuing it took a team effort. Now once it got to shore, the deer rested for a few minutes, and then it took off, apparently uninjured. Well, coming up, one group tries its hand at getting people important cattle on feed numbers, and we look at beef demand and whether it will continue this year. That's next.
Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services. Drover's Report is brought to you by Beringer Ingelheim. They understand that when you put cattle first, it naturally leads to doing the right things.
Demand for beef has risen 15% since 2012. That's according to retail sales data cited by the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. And that trend is expected to continue this year. The USDA is predicting people will eat nearly 9% more beef this year than they did in 2015. 97% of food service establishments report having beef on the menu, and one study says having beef on the menu has been shown to increase restaurant traffic by 45%.
Possible negative influences on beef demand this year could be found in an economic slowdown. Economists believe the first 6 months of 2019 appear to show an environment of slowing economic growth. Consumer confidence surveys indicate that confidence is declining, with some suggesting the outlook for the U.S. economy is the worst since mid-2014.
Experts say the decline in confidence is due to several issues, including the partial government shutdown, the impact of tariffs, and instability in the financial markets. Now, cattle on feed numbers on hold right now due to the government shutdown, but another organization is trying to offer up some perspective. The Livestock Marketing Information Center saying it's releasing its best estimates based on available data. Now, it estimates that marketings are 99.5% of a year ago, or down 0.5%. LMIC estimates placements last month were slightly higher than a year ago. That would be the highest December number since 2010. And it would put the number of cattle on feed as of January 1st at over 102% of a year ago. Now, maybe you have a green thumb with things outdoors, but what about those indoor plants? Some advice on how to care for them next. It sounds simple, but watering your indoor plants properly is an important part of keeping them healthy. Louisiana State University Ag Center horticulturist Dan Gill explains the proper way to quench your plant's thirst.
You know, one of the most common questions I get when it comes to taking care of indoor plants is how to properly water them. And you know, folks, really nothing could be easier if you follow a few general rules of thumb. Now, first off, there's some factors that sort of indicate how much water a plant will need as far as how often you need to water it. First off, plants that are in small pots, like this one you see right here, need to be watered more often. They just simply dry out faster than a plant growing in a larger pot. So keep in mind the smaller pots will be watered more often than plants in larger pots. Also, the kind of plant influences how often you water. Plants like these cacti and succulents need to be watered relatively seldom compared to these foliage plants. Spathiphyllums, or peace lilies in particular, are really dramatic if you don't water them enough. If they wilt, you know you haven't watered them enough. And by the way, that's not a good way to judge when to water a plant. You need to water plants before they actually get to that wilting stage to keep them healthy and in good shape. Now, when it comes to watering the plant, nothing could be easier. What you want to do is you want to apply the water generously enough to where it runs out of the drainage holes. You know, with a lot of my smaller house plants, I like to bring them to the kitchen sink and water them there, let them drain thoroughly. You see the water coming out of the drainage holes? That lets you know you've watered enough. If you don't see the water come out of the drainage holes, you might not have wet the entire root ball. So when it comes to watering, water the plants thoroughly and then stick your finger in the pot every now and again. When it starts to feel dry, then you water thoroughly again. So take good care of your houseplants. Proper watering should not be a mystery or hard to do. Water when the soil feels dry to your finger, and you'll always do well. Forget it growing. I'm Dan Gill with the LSU Ag Center.
Good advice there. All right, that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Spend part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.